Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And with this week, we got Miranda back.
Hello.
How are you?
Howdy, doctor.
Very good, thank you.
Awesome. How about you? Everything going good
Yeah,
for
it's
you?
good. Rough week, but it's all right. It's okay.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's been a kind of a crazy roller coaster. I've had now at work, I feel like more people have gotten my email now that are like, that didn't have it before. So now all of the questions that I was getting asked in person because no one could really contact me, now everyone's able to just ask them on a whim. And I'm like, oh, I gotta fix some of that.
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of been my week, is just trying to like we talked about a couple episodes ago, is just differentiating between emails and what's the priority. But
speaking of which, how many emails do you still have in your box, Miranda?
Don't call her out. Come on.
209,000.
9,000?
It was a 250,000.
Gee, I mean, hey.
I got rid of a lot.
I mean, yeah. 50,000 nothing to shake a stick at.
But do I get any credit? No.
I'll give you credit when you get it down below 20,000.
That might not happen.
I was going to say at least 100,000.
Yeah, right?
If you can get it to 100,000, I'll be impressed.
I'll try.
So, what is the question this week?
Well, I've been looking at how social media has been changing so much so quickly lately. And so I wanted to pose the question, how do you use social media, and how do you foresee that use changing?
Wow.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
I hate social media.
Really?
Yeah.
Elaborate, please.
I don't like what it does.
Yeah.
And instead of people appreciating what they are, they compare themselves to other people.
I see.
You know, my life sucks because I don't have this, this, and this, and this. And then you have these people on there that are called influencers that are worth shit in real life, but because they got big boobs or nice hair, or big boobs and nice hair, they get a lot of followers, and so they get to make money on it.
I'm just going to add, if you have to go out and publicly tell everybody that you're an influencer, you're not an influencer.
You know, and I think there's a lot of messages out there that I would like to get out, like this podcast.
Right.
You know, that, I don't have big boobs. So I got to work a little harder at it.
Come on.
Give
yourself some credit.
It's kind of ridiculous to me.
Right.
You know, I started social media a couple of years ago just to kind of keep in touch with some friends and family when I was traveling. It was an easy way to do that. And then I started my catering company, and I kind of used that a little bit to kind of promote it. But now it's evil. Yeah.
I remember, it's one of those things I think I feel like kids that are younger than I probably won't remember this. And it's one of those weird like points in history. Like I remember when I was a kid having CDs a whole lot.
Right.
And like cassette tapes were still around, but not being used quite as much. And then like the advent of like, or the invention of like higher speed internet. I was in the age bracket of like dial-up was still a thing, and then we didn't have to like hang up the phone lines anymore. Like that kind of transitional stuff. I remember when I was in like high school and some of these social media platforms became like really popular.
Well, Facebook you had to be in school. You had to be in high school or university.
Right.
Initially, you had to have a university address.
You couldn't even, if you were outside of school, you couldn't even participate in it.
Right.
And then they realized, well, shoot, we can make money at this.
Yeah.
And so they opened it up for everybody. But originally, it was for students to communicate, on an academic level.
Right.
Remember MySpace before that?
I was just about to say that. The first social media platform I ever had was MySpace, and that was a lot of fun to...
Well, MySpace was fun until they changed the dynamics of how it worked. They tried to do something completely different and absolutely destroyed it.
Right.
And Facebook and Instagram came in and took advantage of that hole and filled it.
Yeah. I remember specifically the point in time, like in middle school, high school, having a MySpace page and like keeping up with friends and like all that kind of stuff. And then I remember vaguely when Facebook was around, but the big one that I remember that I'm still kind of a big part of is Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when that was like a really big deal, and it felt like everyone was getting on Instagram, at least in my area and age bracket. And then I got one and kind of fell in love with it because I was also really getting into like photography and stuff, music and photography and all that. And obviously now looking back on it, I'm like, man, those are some really awful photos, but it was a stepping point, like a stepping stone where I got to where I am now. And so,
see, I don't get Instagram. Like, I have an Instagram account,
right.
But it doesn't make sense to me. And, you know, I know like from talking to my kids and people more in your generation, they love Instagram, but it just does not, you are not interacting with anybody. You just get a little heart on your photo,
right.
or someone can ask a little, you know, ooh, that's so cool. You know, it's like little questions. There's really there's no groups. There's no discourse. It's not the same level of interaction that you see in Facebook, where you can type in there's a group and there's a group for everything. Or if you go to Reddit, there's a group for everything.
Right.
So it's very much interest driven. Mm-hmm. And for me, Instagram, I'm just like, it's like a platform for influencers and for pictures.
Right.
But how much can you actually communicate on Instagram?
Yeah. I remember whenever it first kind of started off, there was, the way I looked at it was like a catalog of my best photos of stuff.
Okay.
And it wasn't just photos of me. It was like, I would take like photography stuff, edit them, and then transfer them on my phone and then post it that way. So a lot of times I would like take really nice photos of things and then like doctor them up in like Adobe Lightroom or Photoshop or something and make them look nice, and then would like have that be like a scrapbook of photos that people could see. And then, but also an occasional photo of like, look at me doing this thing, or it's a birthday party or something like that. And that was the main thing I used it for, was because it was not just like words, like a tweet or like a Facebook post. Sometimes it was like everything that was being said was also being conveyed in a picture. It was much more visual, and I liked that. And I was like, that's cool. I can like see what my friends are doing and also see a photo of some kind. And again, as it went along, they started adding like ways to message people, and it became more of a social platform in that regard. But with all that, I think now it's so, I feel like a majority of the big social media platforms are all just kind of big, like it's all just an amalgamation of like the same thing. Is what it feels like.
It went from let's communicate to let's make money.
Oh yeah, of
and
course.
anytime you bring in the greed,
right?
You know, it changed. You know, I gotta quit saying. You know, it changes the concept and what you're doing because people just want to talk to each other. They want to communicate, and sometimes, like during COVID and things like that, it's not really, you know, easy to do that. But you find a platform that you can do that a little bit easier, and then somebody wants to come in and make money. Let's make groups. Let's change this. Let's do this. Let's monetize that.
Right.
And then it's not the same. Advertise this. Yeah. It's not the same.
Right.
But the $1 million question for me, and maybe for you too, is yes, there's money to be made on social media platforms.
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely.
Right.
You know, I've been there. I've done it. I've built my own business on social media. So I'm very familiar with this whole concept, and I've watched a lot of changes over the past decade. But let's take it let's roll it back one step. Is Facebook a government asset? Is it solely exist to collect data on Americans?
Well, you got to think about it like this. You know, the government didn't come in and have to do anything with facial recognition. Facebook did it for them. They came in and said, post a picture of you now.
Oh, yeah.
The
20 years
challenge.
ago. Yeah, the 10-year challenge. And so you gave the government everything they need for their facial recognition.
But there's a lot of rumors that the U.S. government actually is, you know, pretty much the backer of that whole organization.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but that's what everyone's saying about TikTok.
Right.
It's
the
like
Chinese,
you know. Well, and it's very politically heavy with, you know, propaganda in certain areas and with certain things. I don't know anything about that personally. I'm not on TikTok, but the thing I was saying was it just feels like each one of them is a different flavor of the same thing.
Right.
At one point in time, I feel like I would go onto Facebook and have a place that I could like post and talk about stuff and join a group or whatever, or meet with old relatives or friends I haven't seen in forever. And I would go on Instagram and like be able to show off my work in some way. But now it like with that and TikTok and everything else, it just kind of feels like it's all kind of the same thing. It's
well,
like,
you
it's
take
kinda
something simple like Marketplace on Facebook.
right.
That was a great concept when it first came out.
Yeah.
Click somebody 5 miles away from you, put the little circle on it, everything somebody wanted to sell.
Right.
Well, then they said, well, if these people pay a little bit of money and they're 100 miles away, we'll put them in. Or these little businesses, they can be sponsored, and we'll put those in. And you can't filter them out.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to go through it. And then you click on the link, and it takes you to a website. And you're like, damn it, that's not what I wanted.
Right.
I wanted to find somebody in my area who had something to sell. And that destroyed it.
You wanted it to be like Craigslist.
Yeah, kind of in a Craigslist fashion.
But prettier.
Right.
But even Craigslist.
Yeah.
When it's not a social media platform, but, all of a sudden you started getting cuckoo ads,
Oh yeah.
and it just make it simple, keep it simple, and so what do? Do you do something different? Instead of doing ads, do you charge $3 a month to keep,
Right.
Twitter going like Elon Musk wants to do?
Yeah.
So are you
Would either of you pay $3 a month to have a social media platform? Because that's what Elon wants to charge.
Well, I don't know, because I'm on a page called armslist.com, and it used to be really simple. You could click on your state, then you could, look in your area and find guns and ammo for sale. Well, all of a sudden you get these crazy ads.
Oh, yeah.
Preferred vendors, blah, blah, blah. Everybody that wants to pay a little bit of money and get their ads put on your page. And then to kind of cull that a little bit, they said, well, we're going to cut that down, or we're going to charge $6 a month. So is that worth it or not?
What it makes me think about is being some sort of artist in this digital age, whether it be with music or with photography or even podcasts for that matter. It just really I've had this conversation with many people and artists in this same kind of space as well, is having your stuff on somebody else's platform.
Right.
Is you are beholden to the terms of service or the community guidelines or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, like, you're putting your stuff on somebody else's website that they can curate or cater.
I'm in Facebook jail right now for a meme I posted 3 years ago.
Oh my gosh, what? Wow.
A 60-day jail sentence for a 3-year-old meme.
Wow.
They're reaching.
Oh yeah, well, but I mean, case in point, it's like, you ask, to go back to the question you asked, would I pay $3 or $6 for a social media platform? I feel like I would just go spend that money on my own website and just like make my own website that I can, of course, curate myself, and I have the full rights over what I'm doing and stuff like that. And there are people that I know of in this digital space, comedians and people of all varieties, that are doing that now. They're like, it is hard in this day and age, I feel like, to have things on other people's platforms because because it's like you have to cater to what they want in a way. So if you want to, like I said, for instance, the people I'm talking about, comedians, they can't say certain things, they can't do certain things. Not like they're going to be doing anything.
Well, there's a whole
That's
political
cancel
genre
culture.
that's
That's
getting
part of the cancel culture, right?
But it's also yes, you're right. But
free
it's
speech
also,
is gone.
But it's also the fact of the guidelines are ever changing, and again, things that were okay, what feel like 2 or 3 months ago, are now no longer okay, or even 3 years ago with your.
Well, like I said, I've had my group for about 10 years, and I've got several groups, but I've got one main group, and we kind of hover right around 10,000 women in there.
Right.
So in weight loss resources with Dr. Miranda, we have seen a trend because probably 98% of my demographic is women that come in there.
Right.
And we have seen a trend where Facebook said you had to have groups. You could not promote any business type of things on your personal page. So all of these Facebook people went out and created groups. Then Facebook said, nope, you can't have groups. You have to have a business page. So everybody quickly rolled over and created business pages. Then they flip-flopped and said you had to have groups again. Now they're flip-flopping and they want you to do paid advertising. But if you make the mistake of having a paid ad, you will never get promoted again.
Right.
Like they'll hold your account hostage in essence. And so it makes it tough. And then when you look at how the young people have really flocked away from Facebook, and things have they've changed so dramatically. You know, people have just kind of gotten sick of the games. They've gotten sick of the ads. They've gotten sick of not, being in Facebook jail for the most ridiculous things, or having their accounts taken over. You can't report things for being wrong. They'll just say, oh well, or that violates community guidelines. Yeah. And there is no recourse.
Whatever happened to just turning something off or changing the channel?
Right.
If you don't like something, shut the hell up and move on.
Don't watch it.
I mean, come on.
Speaking of that, I have a lot of friends I wouldn't really call it a social platform, but it's like social platform adjacent is YouTube. I have a lot of friends that are in the YouTube space that have done it for a long time, and it's the same sort of thing. It's playing the game. Is at one point in time, it was all about subscribers. How many subscribers do you have? That was a big thing. Now it's all about engagement. Who has the most likes? Who has the most comments? Like, it's all this, but it's an ever-changing thing. And that was the point I was making initially, is instead of trying to follow this algorithm, trying to follow this carrot on a stick, proverbially, you can go someplace else and go, I have my own space where I can do my thing. You can come see my art or my
partake. But how do you find it if you don't put it on one of these platforms? How does somebody find you? Like, we're going through that right now with this podcast.
Right.
Here I go again with the when there's a statistic out there that if you get more than 100 listens a month, you are in the top 40% of podcasts.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there. And they're not out there. People don't, a couple people listen to it, whatever. But the main podcast, they're out there. They're pushing them. They're advertising them. They're putting them on I keep asking you, hey, make us a little clip. Let's put it on TikTok and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the ways you do that.
Right.
And yes, we're kind of holding to them, but...
Well, and these people that I'm talking about that make their own website, make their own platform, make their own stuff, or put it on a different website. I'm not saying that they don't use that stuff, use it as a tool to then get people over here. Because again, that's like they're looking at it more as like and I think I want to try and do this too in some way. I'm now by no means am I even able to set up my own service or platform, but have these social media platforms be the public, quote unquote, public spaces that you're like, hey, I got stuff over here, come check it out. And of course, then they come over there. But what they're talking about is the dependency on, like, I'm making money here and I have to, like, follow.
Beholden to somebody else.
You're beholden, yeah.
And so
then you got to play to their drums.
Exactly.
Well, and that's why a lot of these podcasts and different sites and services are doing, what's it called now? Patreon. Where people are having paid subscribers that are getting an extra tier or an extra level of access. But again,
you're beholden to patron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're holding you hostage. If you don't do what they want, they cut you off and then you're done.
Exactly. It's such a weird time because I feel like it almost feels like overnight that it went from like the little.
To me, it's like we're watching it implode. And I'm waiting every day for some new service to come up and say, we're going to be the next best thing.
Right.
Because right now, nobody can check all the boxes. Mm-hmm. Nobody has actually got a social media platform that you can be social on, that you can interact, that you can do business, that it's not ridiculously, run ads, or that it takes over your phone, with so many different notifications and everything else.
Well, on top of that, just the left has taken over.
Yes.
The liberal community has taken over, turned it into a cancel culture.
That was a Freudian slip.
Yeah, it was, right? It's kind of the same thing, maybe, in retrospect. To where you have to play their game to keep going, or you get cut off.
Yeah.
And then Elon Musk buys Twitter. Mm-hmm. I don't care about the $3.
I do, because I'm cheap.
I understand. I don't care about the $3. But now the $12 million a year, what is she called? The
disinformation
czar of Twitter got shit canned, I think, today, because he's not going to put up with that. And I think they're going to develop a real set of standards, you know.
Yeah.
No hate speech.
Right.
You know, no pro-Nazi this, no hate that.
Right.
That's fine. But if you have something to say it.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because she got paid a lot of money to keep a lot of people down for not agreeing with the liberal side of it. And you should have heard her
with George Soros.
Yeah, you should have heard her. That's one of the reasons she's freaking out right now, because that was a way they could control information.
Yeah. That's so,
you know. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. And also talking about like the way the platform is changing and everything. You had said something, Miranda, before the show started about how TikTok doesn't feel like a social media platform. It just feels like a media platform. Mm-hmm. And the more I thought about that, they all kind of feel like that in a way. Some more social than others, but it just
it's all media, no social. And
right.
We'll sit in bed at night and we'll sit there for 20 minutes before we turn off the lights, and we'll just flick through the videos. And it's all kind of nonsense. You know, I know some people that are making some, you know, serious salaries off of doing TikTok videos, but I don't see how you get the interaction.
Right.
You know, you either have followers or you don't. There really isn't interaction on TikTok. So I don't understand.
Well, then it comes down to the psychology of it. If somebody doesn't like your post, you're going to get depressed. And then you get this, you know, push in your brain, endorphins, every time you get a like. And you get addicted to that. You get addicted to the likes.
Yeah.
You know, there is a mental disease out there on selfies. You know, there's a woman who had over 60,000 selfies in a year. How do you take...
We have a friend that we see when we go out to restaurants.
We call her the selfie girl.
Yes, because
how do you
throughout the night, she will probably take 200 or 300 selfies every single time we see.
Yeah, 100.
Every single time we see her.
I mean, that's an addiction.
I don't even have the time for that.
I don't
either. For me, this is also like a personal thing. I've gotten off of social media, a lot of it, except for the stuff that I do for work. And you have encouraged me to try and get back on it, and I know that because I need to for these podcasts.
Right.
But it's almost... I need to look at it again as a tool that I need to use in some capacity to help broaden the audience for the things that I do love, like this podcast.
Right.
It's just been hard because there was a time when I was doing freelance photography and I was doing stuff like that, and I wasn't making money off of social media, but I was using the platform to get my name out there and to do things like that. And it became work. It became a point where I was like keeping up with the trends or keeping up with, you know, whatever you want to call it. And it just got so tiring for me. And again, it also just felt fake in a way too. I was like,
well, you have to dedicate yourself to it because it does change so quickly. And what works today is not necessarily going to work tomorrow.
Right.
I know back, you know, I bought my practice here in the city that we live in 2012. Okay. And I was paying a big SEO company out of Dallas $900 a month to do my SEO stuff.
Right.
And I really wasn't getting any traction at all in the local market.
Yeah.
I started doing some YouTube videos where I said, hey, you know, this is Dr. Miranda from, you know, and I happened to mention the name of my practice in the first 30 seconds of what I said.
Yeah.
And, you know, YouTube crawls its videos and creates a little transcript. So by me mentioning the name of my practice, I got far more traction on my SEO than what I was spending the big bucks for, and that was free.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, I was being found locally, whereas before that, you weren't unless you were doing paid advertising. Wow. And you back then you had to pay anywhere from $12 to $22 a lead to get your local Google stuff.
Right.
So that was free. So if you know how to utilize social media, it can be very lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it changes so quickly, and they're so greedy on trying to always try to squeak every little advertising dollar out of you, that if you're not investing in it mentally and learning how to do it every day, you'll quickly fall behind and you won't be able to keep up.
Well, and that was the point that I was making a second ago, was the fact that I was getting stuck in the loop. I was getting stuck in caring about how many likes I got or how many people engaged with it. And I was caring a lot about what other people were posting. It just became like, it wasn't an addiction, but it became to a point where I was like, I'm getting stuck in it. And I was like, I can see how someone can get addicted to this and can have a problem with this.
You saw Magnus is completely addicted to it. He would get 3 or 4 likes for a video and go like he was the king of the world.
Right.
And then all of a sudden nobody would like it again, and he was completely depressed. And then he would have to do something else.
Yeah.
You know, and then he would have to do something else, and he would have to, and none of it's funny.
Like drive the lawnmower into the culvert?
Yeah, like drive the lawn.
He videoed it. He was doing a TikTok video and wrecked our lawnmower.
My gosh.
You know, and lied and said, no, I didn't wreck that. He wrote it up to me and says, I don't know what happened.
Then we found the TikTok
Then
video.
we found the TikTok video.
Wow.
And you watch somebody and you feel really sad for them. You know, even, you know, some of the people that you watch take selfies, you know, that's an addiction.
Yeah.
You know, and it's bad. And people aren't going to get better as long as, you know, these social medias, you know, do that.
Well,
Didn't you say something about if you want more traction on Facebook, you have to put a picture up?
Yes. Has to be brand new content, new pictures.
Interesting. So I haven't gotten back on social media because of that. Is like, it's almost like having a breath of fresh air, like being off for like a year or two, or even, I think it's probably even been a little bit more than that almost, is like being away from it and like focusing on other things. I'm like, I really don't want to go back because it's like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to subject myself to try and like get back in the routine of that. And that's why I know I need to probably use that and have a healthy relationship with it. But right now, the relationship I do have is, if I don't have to see him again, that'd be great. But I know that's not probably a good way to look at that.
For the podcast, we're going to start doing something.
Exactly. And so, and again, I have been trying my best to reframe my mindset and get better at that, because I know I need to, but it's like, it just kind of feels like.
Well, in everything that you do, life is full of, you know, ups, downs. Right. It's full of tools. It's full of complications, and you just have to kind of compartmentalize that this is just a tool.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this hammer, and when you need a hammer, you don't want to grab a screwdriver.
Right.
Because the screwdriver is not going to work. So for us, social media is going to be kind of necessary evil to continue to get our word out, because people like what we're talking about.
Yep.
You know, we have really good numbers. People like it. But we need to get it out a little bit further.
Right.
So, you know, we ask people, you know, in every podcast to share us, like us, do whatever you can to kind of help us get the word out. But we have to take it a little bit further. And unfortunately, social media is one of the ways you do that.
Right. So I guess now the bigger question is, we've already seen how much social media can change in 5 years from what it was to what it is now. What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years, or even less than? Because, I mean, how long has TikTok been so popular? It's only been
it's only been out for about a year.
Oh, I thought it's been out longer than that.
I don't think so.
I think I think it was a different app, and then it got rebranded as TikTok, and I think that I'm talking about since it's gained, like, I think it's probably been super popular for about a year. I think it's probably been out longer than that. But regardless, even if it's only been out for, or even if it's only been as popular as it has been for 2 or 3 years, that's still, I mean, because I don't think I was even. Let me think about this.
The app was launched in 2016.
So okay, so here, this is a good point of reference. I lived in Canada and came back at the beginning of 2019, and I don't think I was talking about TikTok then. It was probably out for 3 years, but I was not talking about TikTok in 2019, I don't think. 2020, I think, is when I kind of really started thinking about it. So again, 2 or 3 years sounds like pretty accurate for me. And to think that there's people out there that are getting 50 million views on a video, it's like, that is insane.
Well, I think that Facebook is shrinking. I
Right.
think Instagram is shrinking. I think YouTube is growing. TikTok is growing.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you there, but TikTok is really simple.
Mm-hmm.
You click on it, you watch the video, swipe it up.
You doom scroll is what I heard.
That's it.
I heard that term recently, and I was
you
like,
know,
"Oh, that's such a
there's
good
an
term."
ad maybe, there's not an ad maybe. It's really simple. These other social medias are just making it too complicated.
Right.
It's just too complicated. And what does the user want to do? They want to watch something, listen to something, get
Right.
their mind off of the real world. And the social media platforms have lost that simple thing. Let's get a couple of viewers, listeners, watchers, whatever, and then maybe throw in an ad occasionally and make a little
Right.
bit of money. Now it's all revolved around money. It's just pure,
Yeah.
unadulterated greed. And
I-
people are getting tired of it. And that's why TikTok is popular right now, because it's just really
Right.
simple. It's just simple.
And I think that it also scratches an itch for. I think the magic of it is that there's like a lot of young people on the platform already, because it was Musical.ly, I think, which
Right.
was a very young driven app anyways, once upon a time. But I think it's also people in my generation remember, or I say my generation, many people do remember Vine. Everyone
Right.
loved Vine.
Yes.
And then of course it went away.
It died quick.
It died quick.
Not as fast as disco, but it died quick.
But the thing is, like, people loved it. People couldn't make money on it, and then things happened, and then I think they went bankrupt or something like that. I forgot what it was. Regardless, they got shut down. But there was still a desire for it, where I remember hearing people go like, "Oh man, remember the glory days of Vine?" I was like, I
Right.
was never a part of Vine. I remember watching the videos being really quick. I don't really have that kind of attention span. It's like really fast and like always changing. So for me, it just kind of stressed me out. Like a lot of times it was just so fast and so much happening. I was like, I don't know. We got to slow down here. And so it was never really my cup of tea. But I see now, like, a few years later, there's this new thing called TikTok that's still kind of, it is very adjacent to that.
Well, there's
And it
only one
scratches
person
that
in this
itch.
studio that has a viral TikTok video. Just saying.
Yeah.
There you go.
About that.
Yeah. I mean, hey, and I mean, and also,
Really?
if we're also talking,
Really?
if
You're
we're
going to
also
bring that up, right? I do have a viral
love
video.
it.
Uh-huh. You remember
But-
the video?
I remember it.
You
Yeah,
remember
it's
the
hard to
video, right?
forget.
Yeah. Well, I put it
Oh.
on TikTok
Right.
just to see what would happen.
Right.
How much stupidity do people really like?
Oh,
Yeah, well, it's viral.
yeah. But-
Cuss words and everything.
Right.
It's
But,
out
like,
there.
But the thing is, like, that is a prime example also of what TikTok is. Their algorithm, from what I have heard from people, is very good at nailing down what you want to see.
Mhm.
All it takes is you to just like a couple things, or to scroll and watch a few things.
Well,
all
I
the
think
way
it's a
through.
timing on how quickly you scroll on a video. If you don't like it and you scroll away from it, they know you
Right.
don't like that content.
Well,
but if you sit there and watch another one,
Yeah.
they'll keep you on and they'll start funneling that to you.
Right.
So-
We get entirely different TikTok videos
Oh,
shown
yeah.
to us because he gets a
Right.
lot with boobs in them.
That's
And-
not true.
No,
I
it
get-
is. You
no,
flip through them, but I don't get those in my
That's
feed.
not true.
You
Right.
do.
They probably know he's a male.
They know he's
adult.
a male.
Yeah, exactly.
they
like,
know he's
you
an
know.
adult
Yeah,
male.
right. It's like, he must like this at least a little bit.
I think I
I
get a
do,
lot of
but-
See what I mean?
I get a lot of business ones.
Right.
And it's just the difference.
I mostly get food ones. If we're going
Oh,
to be
yeah,
honest,
yeah.
I mostly get food ones.
Right.
So
I don't have a TikTok, but I know Mallory does, and she gets some pretty unique videos that I'm like, how did you get here? She's like, I don't know. I don't understand what's going on, but it's interesting.
and I get a lot of dogs. I get
Yes.
a lot of dog
Interesting.
videos. A lot.
And I think there's a way now in the app where you can say, like, I'm not interested in seeing this, or things like this. So there's even more. They're implementing more things to really refine what you want to watch. So that way, whenever you keep doom scrolling and you just keep on going and going forever. It just is all things you want to see, and it's like it's so interesting and also scary for me.
I just don't see the longevity in that. I think it's going to be a novelty, and
Right.
if we're going to discuss trends, that's a novelty to me because
But
you can't
simple.
build.
And people like simple. Every
People
time
do
they
like
make it
simple.
complicated, they run it.
But look, you've got friends that you've known from like Discord and different online chat groups for
Right.
20 plus years because you were able to create conversations.
Yeah.
And now in all of these new platforms, there are no conversations to be had. You're not really getting to know anybody. And, even like in my Facebook group, I can sit there and I can say, okay, I know these women, we have a lot of fun. We post a lot of stuff. What's going to happen if something happens to Facebook? Because there is no other platform out there right now as it stands that I could turn around and reach people the same way or have interaction with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Have to go back to blogging.
Oh yeah,
I've been there, done
Yep.
that.
right.
I used to get 700 hits a day on my blog. I just haven't done anything with it for a while. So
Right. Well, because again, with all the innovations in social media,
Yeah.
I mean, the another part of all of this that I was talking with Mallory about is with TikTok. Is it feels like it also caters to that like parasocial relationship of like if there is any social aspect of it, it is like I am me and you are my audience.
Yes.
It is like, and that's really what it feels
Yeah.
like. The conversations that I've seen and all that kind of like happening is it's just a bunch of what feel like anonymous people making comments, good, bad, or indifferent. And then I'm on my pedestal and you guys are watching me entertain you. There's something, I don't think there's anything probably wrong with that, but I think it can be, and it can get really bad if you're not careful.
But part of that is I would like to know a statistic on who's lonely flicking through.
Yeah.
And, Miranda said, I get a lot of boobs on there.
Mhm.
Well, I don't actually watch them.
Right.
Click
No,
off
you
of them,
you flip off of them.
you
Right.
know. But what about the guys that are lonely? And
Oh,
they're
yeah.
spending 4 or 5 hours a night just looking at these booby pictures, and
Right,
then
right.
magically this woman becomes an influencer.
Right. Or, I mean, yeah, another thing as well is even if it's just this woman that is super attractive, like, I mean, I could probably never meet this person. It's like just watching and going, wow, she's very attractive.
Is it just a PG porn?
Right. Right. Yeah.
It kind of
just,
is because whether you see the influencers as being male or female, they're
Yeah.
wearing next to nothing clothing wise.
Right.
The male influencers all seem to have no shirt on. It's just like,
of course.
why do you have to have no shirt
Is
on
that
to
why
be
you-
talking
Is
about?
that why you tell me to not wear a shirt?
Yeah.
No, you need the mankini.
Oh, no, I'm not wearing a mankini.
Oh,
Not doing
man.
That'll get us some social media
Oh,
presence.
yeah.
No.
That'll definitely.
That'll get me assassinated.
That'll get some discussions
Oh,
happening.
man.
But see, I think men and women traditionally use social media differently
Right.
because
I agree.
men are using it to
Look at
they'll-
boobies.
they'll post something funny. They'll post a joke. They might post a picture of their dog or their kids or whatever. It's limited. You don't see guys posting 15 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
Women, you see, they're posting their meals. They're posting, they've got this whole mean girl persona. It's like high school personified.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just like they use social media for catty purposes. And they're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
they're, I know people that put filters on every single picture that they post.
Yeah.
And to me, it's the most ridiculous thing because it's like you just have to blow up the picture and you can see that your eyeshadow is painted on,
Well, yeah, and like there was a point in time with my Instagram that I had a personal Instagram and then I had a professional Instagram that I was like I would have like my friends and family on one, and I would allow them like to cross over into like my artist page. But that won't be curated. That one's like it has a look about it. It has an aesthetic, if you will. Whereas the other one is just like I'm out with my friends having a fun time. And that was very different.
Yeah, I don't like social media. I don't put my business on social media. Miranda asked me the other day, why don't you put any more pictures of us up there? I don't like pictures, number one. I don't like putting myself out there.
Right.
I just don't like the way I look. I don't want it to be
Front
on the internet for the rest of eternity, basically.
Right.
And so I really don't like putting my business on there. I'll post some funny stuff every once in a while. I'd rather post a gorgeous steak or ribs or brisket picture.
Yeah.
And let a couple people talk about it. But I don't like my business on social media.
Yeah.
The podcast on social media is different because I'm trying to get a message out, what we talk about every day. People like that. I want to get it out there. But as far as my personal life, I don't want that out there.
Yeah. I get that. And I think that's why I did what I did before with having my personal page and my artist page. Is I can curate one and make it look a certain way, and I don't have to get on my personal stuff and get it all. For me, that was when it got too much. Where I was like,
just the conversation about when Miranda and I were going to become Facebook official.
Oh yeah,
really?
Yeah. Right.
It was a couple of week period of time. We were talking about the pros and cons of it, and
right.
Do we want to do this, and when do we want to do this, and really, it's just Facebook.
If I recall, you were pushing for it, mister.
Well, hey, especially
I'm ugly, she's hot. Yes, I wanted that out on that I don't mind being on
right. Well, and again, also, if there is it also depends, I guess, on what social platform you use as like your main one. There's some things like if there are big things in your life, you're like, I do want to commemorate this in some way. And so I can see how somebody would probably have a way to do that digitally. But to go back a little bit to the whole like social, like the whole parasocial relationship thing, is I recently had a discussion with somebody that has like a pretty big following, and they were saying they posted something, and a majority of people, quote unquote, was like really supportive about it. About like if I do this, like everyone, like please be on my side or whatever. Like bear with me, have grace towards me about this. And everyone's like, oh yeah, we got you, we got your back, like we understand, like you're going through something or whatever, like that kind of stuff. It was like very supportive. And then whenever she had posted something about it, all of a sudden it was like shit talking. And she was like, what the heck? I thought you guys were supporting me. And then I had asked the question, I was like, is it the same people? You have a pretty big circle of people, and even though you posted one thing before and you were saying everyone, quote unquote, was supportive, and then now you post this new thing, and then now everyone is not. I was like, are those even the same people? Or is one half of the audience not speaking whenever you're saying certain things? Like this half is really supportive whenever they want to, and then this other half is not, or whatever. It's like keeping that in mind of like, because now this girl had this mindset of like, I can't trust these people or whatever, and I was like, well, is it even the same person saying those things? Right. Or are you just associating it with that? You just have this crowd of people, and you're just putting this label on as like the audience. And if they don't all agree, then it's like, then even if there's a majority, even if it's like 10 people out of 100 people, if 10 people were like, we got your back, we support you, that doesn't quantify the other 90 people that are like.
There's a couple of things in America. We love destroying people and building them back up. We love destroying people and building them back up.
All right.
But I remember, and I akin social media to lending friends money. That sounds kind of crazy, but hear me out.
Hear me out.
I don't lend friends money.
Right.
I'll give them money because I don't ever want to have to worry about getting it back and ruining a friendship.
Right.
I do social media kind of the same way. I'm going to post whatever the shit I want and kiss my ass if you don't like it, because I really don't care about your response back. I really don't. Now, Retrospect, we talk about topics. I want your response, good and bad. Yeah. We try to offend at least one person, which I'm sure I just did a few seconds ago. But it's different for me. I just don't care what people think on social media.
Right.
At all.
Probably a healthy way of looking at it, sort of.
I just don't care.
Yeah.
Well, you have a lot more male friends on your social media, so you don't necessarily see a lot of the cattiness and a lot of the passive-aggressive behavior that you see with women's profiles.
No, I agree with you, but that's also why I don't care.
Yeah. But that's the gender difference. You know, you and I both know people that use their social media as a very passive-aggressive platform,
Yes.
and they use it as a weapon. They'll be capping people in different posts. They'll be, liking certain posts and not other people's posts, calling out how much they love certain people and not others. And it's all designed to hurt people. It's not designed because that's how they actually feel. They're just designed to hurt people.
The only reason that works is because you give them that power. If you don't give them that power, none of that hurts. People have said mean things on my Facebook before. I lost a 24-plus year friend on the onset of COVID because I put a funny meme up that didn't mean jack shit to anybody, but he was offended by it and blocked my phone number, blocked my Facebook, blocked everything. I haven't spoken to him since COVID started because of this stupid meme that didn't mean anything. It was a joke.
Right.
It wasn't even mean-spirited.
But that's the cancel culture.
But it is the cancel
no one can
culture.
have an opinion except for them.
Mm.
Sad thing about that is he's not on the left. He's on the right.
Right.
But something caught him off guard, and that was it. Haven't spoken to my friend, and I'm still calling him a friend.
Right.
Because one day I hope he wakes up and realizes it's just social media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, take that one step further, because I think I know how you will answer, but I don't know how Ian will answer. When you go through your Facebook or your social media posts and you find, when you get the reviews for remind you what happened a year ago, 5 years ago, whatever, and all of a sudden you'll see a face that you haven't seen for a long time, and you click on their name and they've unfriended you.
Right.
Or you get a friend request for someone that you used to be friends with, and something's happened, whether you knew it or not. Do you accept them back, or once they're out, are they out?
I mean, I guess it depends on the circumstance or the person for me. If it was a longtime friend and they unfriended me on Facebook, I mean, I'm the kind of person I'm not afraid to just if they're a real friend, if they're a good friend of mine and I'm not friends of theirs on Facebook, I'd probably call them and go hey, what happened? Or how's it going? Everything okay? Like that kind of stuff. There was one time in particular that I had a lot of my friends and I hang out on Discord. And there was one time in particular that I had a friend that left the group, like the main group chat that we have, and he's a really good friend of mine. And I want to say his account got hacked or something, and kicked him out of a lot of stuff. But I called him and I was like, "Hey, so everything okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" And I was like, "Well, you just left the Discord chat. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just I want to make sure Are you just not interested? Are you okay? Because we're pretty good friends and you like to hang out in the chat and we have a fun time." And he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I was like, yeah, you did. You unfriended me from everything and you're not on the chat anymore. And he was like, uh-oh. And then, of course, come to find out, I helped him out. But even in that moment, he's like, "Yeah, I'm just not really interested anymore. I'm just not into all that." I'd be like, "Okay, cool. That's fine." I'm that kind of person. I'm all about healthy discussion about a lot of things. Let's just talk like civilized adults. I guess that also is part of me not holding a whole lot of merit in being on Facebook. I mean, I've been blocked by a few people that I was like, I understand the circumstance. It was an ex of mine or something. We were in a previous relationship, or her friends blocked me because of some reason. I'm like, I mean, we were mutual friends, but am I really hurt about it? I mean,
well, I remember when Miranda and I started dating, she would ask me some questions, and I'm like, "What? Well, you posted this 14 and a half years ago."
Yeah.
Her and her mom
Digging
must have
it up.
stalked me on Facebook all the way back to the day I
Why
started.
do you say my mom?
I don't know, because y'all must have just been sitting there one day at lunch going,
I scrolled through your stuff.
see?
Yeah.
I mean, she went all the way back.
I mean, hey,
You get to see what somebody thinks is important.
All right.
But I don't think anything on Facebook is important.
But
so if you're going to judge me on Facebook, you are definitely not getting the real me.
Right.
You're getting something that just at the moment I thought was funny, or
Right.
my food looked good,
Yeah.
or something. So
I know the kind of life that I live, and I know who I am as a person.
Mhm.
That if someone feels so upset with me on Facebook that they feel the need to block me, if I ever see them in person again, you can't block me in person.
Right.
I mean,
I look at it like this: if you're going to block
like-
me from something
right.
that you see on social media about me,
Yeah.
go ahead and go.
Right.
Because you didn't take the time to get to know the real me. And if you're that chicken shit, knock yourself
For
out.
me, it's just like if you're upset with me, if there's a problem or whatever, and you feel the need to block me,
Mhm.
it's like I'm still the same person. If we meet in public and I have the opportunity to talk, I'll be like, hey, what's up?
Well,
How's
then
it going?
let's take this another step. What about jobs that go through your social media to see what you're doing?
The hard part is that's like.
Can you imagine
that's like
if somebody looking at my social media and
Right.
going to hire me? That's not me. That's not even close to me.
Yeah.
That's just some bullshit I found funny and decided to post it and
Well,
make everybody smile a little bit.
I feel like that's a double-edged sword. I feel like it's almost like I don't like that because it's like I understand why people would say like it's my job shouldn't have the right to go through that kind of stuff or they should. I understand I don't understand it like personally, but I understand why people would get upset about it.
There's companies that when hire you on the application, you have to provide them the password to your social media.
That's a bit much.
That's the truth.
I mean, you're right. I don't doubt it, but for me, like
That's when you create a new one.
right, yeah. Well, and so for me, like I know I don't really have anything on my Facebook. If there is anything, it's probably from years ago, and it's not any indication of who I am, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But like I understand why people would get. I understand why businesses and companies would have their new hires go through that process because it is a public forum for you to post things. And it's obviously for some people that are very transparent on their social media and post all the time, it's a great opportunity to know somebody.
Right.
So it's hard for me as a person in upper management of some kind to be like, no, that's not a good idea. When it's like, no, it kind of is a good idea to really... getting a background check's one thing, but like getting to see this person's mind in action on this public forum
Right.
is like a great opportunity to see like, do I really want this person here
Mm-hmm.
or not?
But if they would say this about that, what would they say about this company?
This person's
giving
on
them-
here talking about their shitty employer all day long. It's like, no, thank you.
I don't think so.
Right. So I don't. That's what I mean. Is like I understand why people would get upset about it,
Right.
but I also understand why it would be something that people would do.
Because, that's my right to privacy. Hey,
Yeah.
once you put it
Once
on the
you put it on
internet, you're kind of knowing that's not your privacy anymore.
You just put it on the public though.
Yeah.
But then you have First Amendment questions and concerns and,
All right,
and everything else because
Not
you
according
should,
to social media. They have the control of everything you say.
Hmm.
And if you don't say it, they're going to kick you out.
I think that employers should have, you should have to follow whatever levels of decency or whatever. It's like you're not breaking the law on your page. You're not promoting violence. You're not, promoting hate. You just act like a decent person on your
Right.
social media page and
Right.
everybody will leave you alone. But, conversely, and take this, because we just talked about how it would be for employers to look at employees' Facebook accounts, is I did a postceptorship in medical marketing many, almost 20 years ago. And one of the things that they drove home was that as an employer, as the boss, as the CEO, your employees, you set the standard, you set the stage.
Right.
So you shouldn't be driving a big fancy car to work. You should be driving a car that's 1 or 2 levels above what your average employee can drive. On social media, don't be going and posting the picture of your 18th newest vacation home because it dehumanizes your employees. They don't need to see that. If you have 50 Rolexes in your collection, you don't brag about that on social media. You keep that private and you just portray yourself to be a mildly successful person on social media, And that way you don't, piss off your
Alienate
audience. You
your-
don't
your-
alienate your employees. You don't piss off your
Sounds
audience.
like she should have been here for the leadership podcast we did a while back, right?
Right. And for that, it almost feels like you're living a double life still. Even in like the adverse of like you being of lower class and then pretending to like be higher than you are, like a lot of people do. It's like, I'm more wealthy than I actually am, or I'm more pretty than I actually am, or whatever.
Hey, filters are great.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is like, so in that regard, it's still being someone that you're not is like, it just, at that point, I just wouldn't even worry about it.
All
Just
the
don't even post on
filters,
it.
all the auto tune, changing people, the catfishing going on.
Right.
And yet with all of that.
The vague
with all-
posting.
Yeah. With all of that, cremation is my last opportunity for a smoking hot body.
Oh my God.
Filters can't help me.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's so many different things I feel like I want to talk about because of this. This also brings into question a lot of other stuff in how we view certain things in the future. I feel like.
Why don't we do another one? Why don't we do another
Because-
one? Where this one is, the state of the union on social media today. Why don't we do a future one on the future of social media and where we think it's going with metaverse and those
because
things?
one thing we haven't reached on that I kind of was want to talk about a little bit was also playing into employers being able to see your posts on whatever social media you have. Isn't there like somewhere in China, or I could be wrong about that like grades you on?
Oh yes, there's a social media score
Right.
on things that you do and say and
Right.
live your life. Let's add that. Let's do it. Let's
Well, and
do
so
another one.
at that point, it's like you want to talk about what feels like a dystopian future.
Yeah.
Is like being graded and being able to
There's a movie about that.
not in.
Look at all the big warehouses to hold all these servers that they've been building in Utah.
Oh yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
They're collecting so much data on us. Today, I looked at eyeglasses for the first time in months. I did not look them up online. I just talked about eyeglasses when I was in Costco. Now I've got nothing but eyeglass ads all over my phone. They're listening to
crazy.
everything that you do.
That's sickening.
Mm-hmm.
That is really insane.
And what if that starts to affect what your phones are listening, your computers are listening? What if that affects your social score?
Right.
Okay. What if you need a
Right.
certain social score to vote,
Yeah.
or
To buy groceries.
to buy groceries, or something, anything? Oh, you can't have that until you get your social score up.
Yikes.
Well, they were using people's phones and tracking on their phones to track where people were and if they were sick with COVID.
Oh yeah.
So
you're right.
It's not a far stretch. How much have they evolved that technology over the past 2 years? They can track almost everything. They can track if, they'll not happen to know if you have IBS because you're going into public bathrooms more than the average person.
Right.
Or, that you're buying too much alcohol in the liquor store. Or, there's so many different things that they can decide and then have morality police come after you because you don't fit or, you posted a meme against a political party, a sitting political party, then you're persona non grata.
Yeah. That's crazy. And so that's what I'm talking about. Is like stuff like that. That's like not just social media, but like how it is shaping the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in young people around as well. Like, to just to say this as we end the episode, talking about like the beginning of this episode that I was talking about is I remember that transition point of like social media being not being there and now being there.
Mm-hmm.
But people like Magnus, for instance, who
grew up in it. It was there.
world.
It was fantastic.
Right.
For him.
He's never known life without it.
Without it. That's
Exactly.
right.
It's like I remember.
And I'd love to know it without it.
I grew up in a world where I didn't get a cell phone. The only cell phones we had was like a little Nokia phone with like a little LED, like a green LED screen.
Mm-hmm.
That was about as fancy as it got. And that
I still have every cellular device.
I think you told me that before.
Yeah, every one of them. They're in a box.
Yeah.
Miranda's seen it. Somewhere I still have the original pager that I had that looked like a
Wow.
pen. and it wasn't a pager. All it did was beep. And once it beeped, you knew to call the answering service.
Oh my gosh.
That was the first one.
And, but like,
My mother sold cell phones back in the 1980s, and they came
Wow.
like a giant briefcase.
I've seen
and
them.
it had the big shoulder thing. They were like 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And,
I have one of those. I have my brick phone.
Yeah.
I had a phone in my first car. I was 16 and I had a car phone.
That's so
I was
cool.
cruising.
Oh, but like, and so that's what I'm like. Again, that's I guess we can get on with that in a future episode. But that's what I'm talking about. Is like how it has shaped people
Yes.
like your son, and how that is like.
Well, I
What
think
is life like?
The average person right now is spending hours a day on social media.
Right.
Hours a day.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
the
an
numbers,
escape from
yeah.
real life.
Hey,
That's
if
what
I'm
it
if I'm
boils down
being if I'm being completely transparent, besides some of this, like one or two of the streaming services that I have, YouTube is like my main source of entertainment. I usually am on YouTube all the time, and that's just, and it's been that way for probably the better part of 10 years now. Like there was a point whenever I had friends that were still watching cable, and I was like, I'm just done with cable.
We
I
got
don't
rid
like,
of cable.
Yeah, we got rid of cable. I have I love YouTube.
Yeah.
But I also have YouTube TV.
Right.
It's other than Netflix, the only subscription that I have.
Right. I
And I just
haven't-
got rid of Netflix.
Yeah.
So,
Really?
mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I have it, so there's no sense.
Oh, I see. Okay. I have Disney Plus and I have a couple of other ones, but that's
Yeah,
one of the ones that
I couldn't do Disney.
I like Star Wars. I'm a
Right.
huge Star Wars fan, and they have everything Star Wars on
Right.
Disney Plus. So if nothing else, I'm like, it's worth the money for me because
Yeah.
I'll.
And I think, is it Verizon or is it T-Mobile? You get Disney Plus for a year for free.
Verizon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways,
Wow.
what a great episode.
So, do we agree to have a future episode of the future of
Right,
social
right.
media? Maybe. How about
Yeah.
that? Will you come back?
Absolutely.
You will.
Right? She's like, no, I'm not gonna come back. We've offended
want
her
you
on this
back.
episode.
We like you being here.
Yes.
Are you going to post it on your social media?
I might.
Yeah.
I
Pics
do
or-
every
pics
week.
or it didn't happen.
Right. Well, anyways, if you're trying to reach us, you can reach out to us at facebook.com/retrospectpod. Speaking of all the social media platforms,
right.
you can go on to our link tree /retrospectpod, and you can see all of the links that you can reach out to us or get in contact with us. Or you can just type in Retrospect on all your major podcasting platforms. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review while you're at it, because it really does mean a lot.
And share us.
Share
You
it.
know,
If you have friends.
people share stuff,
Yeah.
every day. And if you think about it, maybe in the future, maybe let us be one of your shares. It doesn't have to be today,
Right.
but let us be one of your future shares.
Send
maybe.
it out to your mom.
send it to somebody.
Dad.
Yeah.
Your,
Hey, I heard you talk about this. And
right.
We're more fun than filters.
Yes.
Right. Just a little bit.
Yes, we are.
You trust me when I know you're listening out there. You have shared far worse things than this.
Oh, yes.
So
Absolutely.
come on.
Just let us be one of your next shares.
Anyways, until next week, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Peace.